Welcome back, everybody. I am the German, and today we are going to find out how Americans got stupid. You probably all know the videos where Americans get asked what country lies, what country flag that is, and they have no idea that other countries outside the USA exist, or at least they think it's just Africa as a country, or Europe, which is hilarious. But there's a video that went viral 3 weeks ago, explaining, apparently, how this happened and why. Let's watch it.
This dislike ratio. I make a video.
Wait.
You want to know how I got this dislike ratio? I make a video praising the Soviet Union and nobody bats an eye. I make a video praising the United States and everybody loses their minds. Okay,
That's
fine.
a nice voice.
I hear you.
Voiceover.
You only want to hear things that confirm what you already believe. I get it. Let's talk about why Americans are stupid.
Woo! Finally.
There's a famous episode of the Jimberly Kimberly live show where clueless residents of Los Angeles fail to name a single country.
Is it South Africa?
Yeah, the country of Asia.
Greenland or Iceland or something?
Although these are no doubt cherry-picked, and I'm sure if you stood in a big city all day and shoved a camera in people's faces and asked them questions, you'd be able to find 3 minutes worth of people who couldn't answer on the spot.
For sure, that's true. It's all about framing.
Or name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yeah.
Name a
But the
woman.
stereotype that Americans are ignorant about the wider world is largely true. These people can't name a country because they don't care about other countries. 40% of Americans have
care?
a passport, compared to 66% of Canadians and 76% of Brits. In 1994, it was only 10% of Americans. But that doesn't mean Americans have gotten more globe-trotting since then. It was because after an above-average episode of the news, it became
40%? That's very little.
mandatory to
That's
need
crazy.
a passport when entering Canada and Mexico. So it's fair to say that a very small percent of Americans will be leaving this corner of the world.
So sad.
As I said in a previous video,
Or
America
good
has
for us, I
all
guess.
you'd ever want geographically within her borders. Why go anywhere else? The foreign cultures, maybe? Americans don't care about that either. On the list of the highest grossing movies in the USA, you have to go all the way to 520th place to get a movie that isn't American.
No way. What? That's very far.
It's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, by the way. Couldn't even beat The Nutty Professor. Somebody please check up on Ang Lee. I think he might have killed
That's so
himself.
sad.
Neither do global affairs hold the average
They don't
American's
care
interest.
because
When
they
asked
think they're the
about
best,
Kyoto
huh?
Climate Accords, who the Taliban are, or who Nicolas Sarkozy is, Americans are woefully underinformed compared to other
Who could identify Coyote? Oh, Kyoto. Taliban, Sarkozy. Oh my god, 33rd.
developed nations.
sad.
In 2009, only half knew that last year's Olympics were held in Beijing. Oh, but of course, when asked to name American celebrities, they had no trouble at all.
No, they know the
At
celebrities.
the same time, we non-Americans
But they
are
don't know where
flooded
the
with
Olympics
American
are.
culture. Some British people know more about American politics and history than their own.
Once you're dropped into the trench, depth or the z-axis is
It's Z-axis, you floppy-haired moron. France had to pass laws banning radio stations from playing too much American music. There are only 2 countries in the world where Coca-Cola is not sold. Wait, scratch that. This journalist from Finland bought a Coke at a water park in Pyongyang in 2017.
What?
And what's this hiding in the background of somebody's holiday snaps at the National Hotel de Cuba? Look, you know something's
Illegal.
up when remote tribesmen in the Amazon rainforest who don't even have electricity know who Michael Jackson is. Americans used to be quite well read. After the Second World War, Americans consumed 63% of all the newspapers in the world, and they used
Because
this
they
to their
invented the
advantage.
newspaper, maybe? Huh,
In
no, they didn't.
1948, the newly formed United Nations created a list of human rights that all countries should strive to uphold. One area that Americans were particularly interested in was this one, Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression and opinion, and receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. What the USA wanted was a completely level playing field. Anyone can buy any media from any other country. A global free market of ideas, released from the shackles of
Nazi
censorship.
media.
For if anyone can gain access to the truth, We cannot be marched into the same kind of ignorance and intolerance that characterized the Axis nations of the war. This is admirable. Freedom of speech is a core value of the United States
Sounds
and
pretty
many
good, to be
other
honest.
allied nations. But some delegates, like those from India, questioned the US's motives. If you believe in an equal access to information and culture, shouldn't you redistribute some of your media creating capacity to developing nations like ours, so that we have an equal opportunity to tell the world our stories?
Yeah, but those rights were for the American citizen, not for world citizen.
The Americans would not budge.
They
Of course,
they can't implement laws and rights to other countries anyway.
they knew deep down that India was right.
What?
The American delegation to the convention was highly populated by journalists and media magnates. They knew that if countries couldn't afford their own news, they would be increasingly reliant on buying news from American wire companies like the Associated Press.
Of course,
which
it's
was
all
good for
about
both the
making
media
money.
companies' profits, but also the US State
Should have
Department,
guessed.
who would no doubt have been licking their lips at the prospect of 1 billion people reading news with a specific American spin on it. In 1944, the Associated Press sold news to 38 countries. Within 8 years, that had doubled to
And they
70
control the
countries.
news.
In the 1950s, around half of films shown in European and Asian cinemas were American, 2/3 in Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. Which makes sense. Americans made grand Technicolor films brimming with Hollywood sparkle because they could afford to. Whereas war-torn Europe, impoverished Mexico, and nuclear-obliterated Japan were stuck making small-scale comedies to keep up morale. One of the most popular French movies in 40s France was 1949's The Big Day, a mostly plotless movie where a whimsical French postman gets into wacky mischief in a quaint village. There just wasn't the money or resources for anything else. Hollywood captured the European public's imagination, and they wanted more. But why is
Makes
it only a
sense.
one-way street? Because while you can do or say whatever you want within the United States, the Constitution also says that the American government can regulate what goes in or out. During
Damn
the
right,
Cold
the
War,
government
anything that might
says
be
what news
considered
go out.
communist propaganda
Propaganda.
could be seized by the post office and never delivered. Books or even souvenirs from communist countries, for example. Pamphlets criticizing US foreign policy. Immigration reached a low point in the early 70s, with only 4.7% of Americans being foreign-born, limiting Americans' interaction with different cultures. Obviously,
What? But Americans are all immigrants. All of them, literally.
it wasn't
Except
totally
for the
like North
natives.
Korea. Plenty of foreign movies and music were allowed into the US. But the media that caught on was either already Americanized or so plastically exotic that it doesn't really say anything about the culture where it's from. The Beatles were British, yes, but they got their start covering American rock and roll musicians. When John
What?
Lennon stepped out of
Really?
line, the American
know that.
government made sure that he knew it. Movies imported from Japan were mostly samurai flicks, and very few movies set in the modern day. The film Ikiru is widely considered the best Japanese film ever made, if
Ikiru.
you ignore people
watch
who
that.
have never felt the touch of a woman. But this existential drama about a depressed, lonely man was only given a limited release in California, and the poster was edited to feature a stripper who is only in the movie for like 1 minute.
What?
The narrow stream of European movies that made it into the USA came in the form of the French New Wave cinema, movies that were stylistically inspired by American films, but also so stuffy that few audiences would ever want to watch them anyway.
Qu'est-ce que ça peut te faire?
Ça ne va pas.
What does he mean by stuffy?
Non, rien. Je voulais dire cette phrase avec une idée précise.
Yeah,
Je ne
looks
savais pas
boring.
quelle était la meilleure façon d'exprimer
She's-
cette idée.
Talking from behind?
Ou plutôt, je le savais.
Why?
Mais maintenant, je ne sais plus.
This was further stifled by the Hays Code, a set of extremely strict regulations that were in place from 1934 to 1968. If you've ever wondered why old black and white films seem so dry, it's because of these rules. Some things that were completely banned from ever being shown in any
Wait.
film included.
What? There were rules on how you can make films?
This was further stifled by the Hays
Production code? This blows my mind right now. I didn't know that existed.
Code
I hope
is
this
set with
doesn't exist
extremely
anymore.
strict regulations that were in place from 1934 to 1968. If you've ever wondered why old black and white films seem so dry, it's because of these rules.
That's crazy.
Some things that were completely banned from ever being shown in
What?
any film included
Profanity,
bad guys
obesity.
winning. All movies had to end with the police outwitting the evil criminals or the criminals causing their own demise.
No
Any
way.
nudity, even the silhouette of
They
a
gave
booba
the
is
plot?
an instant ban. Blood or dead bodies. When people get shot in old films, they usually just clutch the wound, but no actual blood is seen. Pointing a gun at somebody in the same frame. This is why guns are always
Crazy.
held at waist height. Kissing for longer than 3 seconds. Interracial couples. White people
What?
are slaves. Criticism of religion or of any other country. Naturally, this prevented the more artistically liberal European films from being shown in American cinemas.
That's
And when they did get a
crazy.
US release, they were usually edited to remove the violence in movies and sex on TV to comply with the good old-fashioned
That's
values.
why all Americans are so
At least
prude.
until the rules were abolished in
Now it makes sense.
1968 and replaced by the age rating system we have today. Even as the Cold War ended and the internet gave Americans unparalleled access to the rest of the world and all of human knowledge, they still preferred to hang out on a handful of American-made websites dominated by Americans. The insular culture of 20th century America has carried over to the 21st. Tightened border security after Septiembre Undécimo means
What did the t-shirt say?
21st. Tightened border security
It's not gay if it's a TSA.
after Septiembre Undécimo means foreign musicians can have a hard time getting visas. In 2002, the touring visa of a German orchestra was cancelled after it was discovered the cellist had a criminal record for shoplifting a pair of tweezers in 1991.
The fuck?
When they tried again for a visa in 2004, the cellist had to undergo an hour-long interview with
Oh,
Homeland
God.
Security and had to physically pick up his visa from the US Embassy.
So
Global
annoying.
cultures might be more present in American
That's why I'm
media.
scared to go to the States. They will take me on the airport, not let me go for like 8 hours.
But they're always through the lens of American characters, such as The Last Samurai starring Tom Cruise, where he plays a white guy in 1870s Japan. 7 Years in Tibet, another American in China. Indiana Jones, American in Egypt. The Bourne Identity, American in France.
Of course, there needs to be an American, otherwise the Americans will not relate to the movie.
Inglourious Bastards, Americans in German-occupied France. And for the ladies in the audience, Mamma Mia. For a movie set on a Greek island, there's not a single Greek person in the entire movie.
What? There's no Greek
Set on a
person?
Greek island, there's not a single Greek person
That's
in the
just
entire
sad.
movie.
That's
Is there
ridiculous.
any hope for America, or are they destined to be a stinky, dumb redneck country forever? Maybe. In 2000, 92% of the music in the USA Top 50 was American, making it the second most insulated market in the world after Pakistan.
What?
But today, it's more like 60%, with Brits, Canadians, Latin Americans, and Africans making themselves more seen in the charts. Each year,
There's
there
hope.
are more foreign films nominated at the Academy Awards
Ooh,
than
there's
ever
hope.
before.
Can't believe it.
What used to be an American-only pay-to-win awards show
Pay
is now
to
an
win.
international pay-to-win awards show.
Oh,
As
is it?
social media platforms have an element of randomness in what they show users, there is a higher chance of Americans being shown videos from other countries, forcing them to take note of what is happening. It seems the revolution
They don't like
will be
it, huh?
TikToked. I've been giving the impression throughout this video that it's all or
That
most
picture.
Americans who are terminally uneducated. But American ignorance isn't as evenly distributed as you'd think. That study I mentioned earlier, when adjusting for English proficiency, income, and education levels, Americans are really no different from their European counterparts, and in some cases, marginally smarter. Knowledge about the wider world even correlates to political views, and not in the way that you'd think. A 2022 survey asked Americans 12 questions about the world, such as who is the British Prime Minister, what does the Indian flag look like, and what this symbol represents. The people who answered the most questions
Who doesn't know the
correctly
euro?
were committed Democrats and committed Republicans. Swing voters, Those enlightened centrist chads were the stupidest. Only 40%
Because they
of
can't
moderate
decide what
Republicans
they
could
like.
name the US Secretary of State, compared to 60% of convicted Republicans. Only half of moderate Democrats knew that the USMCA trade agreement replaced NAFTA, compared to 66% of convicted Democrats. Also, I just thought it was funny that the more Americans know about the European Union, the more favourable view they have of it. So are Americans ignorant?
That's right.
Many of them are. But it isn't their fault. It's a mix of geography, American imperialism, Cold War paranoia, moral puritanism, and economic factors that create a paradoxical nation that is both the most expansive empire, but also an informational prison of their own making.
Informational prison.
God bless you, stupid bastards.
God bless you, stupid bastards. I agree.
Paradoxical nation that is
Well, this was very informative, very interesting. This is so complex. Why Americans get so stupid. But there's hope in the end, I guess. But the key question here is, why are Americans so ignorant? Yeah, this was the main statement in the beginning. They don't know anything about the world because they're so ignorant and kind of excluded, like isolated from the rest of the world, geographically and culturally. That would be a very interesting question to answer as well. Why they are so ignorant? I guess, yeah, because of all of these reasons that were mentioned, but it has to be something to do with the cultural psychology of it as well, right? Anyway, great video by Brit Monkey, pretty new channel. If you like this video, go subscribe. And the people who come to Europe from the USA are already different than the people who answer stupid questions in these videos, because they made it out of the USA, and the people who answer those questions, they are living in the USA and they're not leaving there. And even the people who leave the USA, they seem always very ignorant and don't want to learn local customs of different countries. Why they don't want to learn this? I don't know. If they go to different countries, they don't even care learning the few basic words you need, like ordering food, saying hello, thank you, stuff like that. And that is very ignorant, yeah. Maybe it has something to do with their upbringing. I don't know what that is. Europeans are not like that. We at least try to learn the basics of the language when we go on holiday somewhere. But Americans, they expect everyone to speak English. And if the country or the people in the country, they don't speak perfect English, they get annoyed and then they hate it there and write Karen reviews on TripAdvisor. This country sucks. Yeah, that's how it is. But what is this solution to this ignorance? I don't know. If you know, let me know. And with that said, see you guys in tomorrow's video.